This conference will now be recorded.
Stand for the Pledge of Allegiance in a moment of silence. First item on the agenda this evening is roll call, please. Here.
Yes.
Here. Item 4 on the agenda is approval of consent agenda, approval of minutes for the regular meeting of July 14th, 2025, and statement of bills paid.
Sorry, I had a question. Sorry, if I could I do a question? Oh, correct. 1 minute. It's on page 6 of the, I don't know, page 6.
Yeah, page 6 of 7
Correct.
of the check report on
Yes.
the left.
Yes.
Upper. Okay, yeah.
So down at the bottom, I've been meaning to ask this. There's 2 line items. Kansas Police and Fire for 17,55574 and Kansas Police and Fire 17,08553. Should one be police, one be fire? Or are they just combined for whatever purpose?
I believe we're paying one.
Okay. 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 That makes sense. It just looked like 2 different line items, but yet they're labeled the same.
So that's our KP&F of our state retirement. And so one's for police and one's for fire. And then the same thing for the capers. Why is that divided up? Do you know? In the retired. Yep.
Oh,
There you go.
gotcha. Nope. Makes perfect sense. Thank you. No further questions. I'll make a motion to approve council consent agenda 4A and B.
Second. We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 Next item 5, requests for comments from the public. None. Move on to item number 6, which is old business. Consider approving an amendment to the disposition and disbursement agreement between the city and the IMI3 LLC for Project Plan 2A within the Wood End Road TIF redevelopment district.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, Council, you have before you item number 6A. You've had this background before. This is old business. I'm going to point out that between the city attorney and our bond counsel, they changed letter E. Slight language change, and that was one of the reasons we tabled it. We want to go back and just review it, just to clean up the language. The item E, it says the parties desire to amend the terms of Exhibit C, and that's just a slight change in legal language. Correct, City Attorney? Yes. City Attorney prepared this, all the recitals, the whole amendment, and I'll refer to the background information. All indications from our financial advisors, both attorneys and myself reviewing this, it appears that it's very favorable for the city. It moves the cap of reimbursement from 150 to 192,000. There's an update to the revenue projections. I have to read from this from 24 to 25 because of the property valuations. It resets the total reimbursement cap to 900,000. But it keeps in place the existing revenue allocation, 21.4% to the city, 78.6% to the developer, and it's a pay-as-you-go. So that means they're paying as they go. So essentially, this TIF is they're taxed, they pay their taxes, and then they're reimbursed that increment. That's what happens. So their incentive is they get money for the city during the duration of the agreement, and they're then reimbursed for some of their investments, mainly infrastructure, their streets, you see that over there and that sort of thing. And they, of course, built the building. All of that's been done. This amendment is a result of valuation there was no assessment by Wyandotte County in 2024. And so, but there was a building there, right? So it was assessed as vacant property. And so that caught their attention. They didn't get any revenue from the city, which we agreed to, because none was paid to us. And so that triggered this kind of just inquiry about the background of the agreement, and these changes were somewhat necessary to catch this up. All taxes have been paid and everything else. So as soon as a disbursement comes to us, we will then disperse to them as we should per the agreement. So we recommend that you adopt this agreement. It works in favor for the city and the developer as well. They're agreeable.
So, and I think we talked about this before, but it's a net positive to our city. It's not a cost, but a positive.
Yeah, it is.
And then,
Versus the old agreement. And it's essentially the entire process is to get incentives to build to, at some point, recoup 100% of the property taxes to the city itself. And this will do that earlier.
we definitely want some development to come in down there, get some cash registers.
Make a motion to consider approving an amendment to the disposition and disbursement agreement between the city and CIMI LLC for project plan 2A within the Wooden Road TIF redevelopment district.
Second. We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll? Yes.
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 Item number 7, consider resolution 2025-11, adopting the Wyandotte County Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, council, you have before you item number 7, background information. This is a staff recommendation that you consider and then adopt resolution 2025 number 11. It's a resolution adopting the County Region L Hazard Mitigation Plan. This is somewhat of a continuous process through the years. This comes from the federal FEMA programs down to the state, down to the counties, and then the cities individually adopt these particular changes. And there was I would say a major change. There was a change to the program. It happens every couple of years in 2024, and we have yet to adopt that. And how we know that is as we applied for our generator grant. You might remember Fire Chief Whittam coming forward and say, hey, we have these generators for our buildings, and we're awarded this. However, this is a condition for that particular generator grant and other federal regulated and awarded grants. So that's one piece of it. The changes are really reflected in the background page number 2. It's 2 sections were extensively further developed in the most current revision proposed. They include sections on community wildfire protection plan and transmittable diseases. Those were the 2 major changes. This is a very extensive document that we have reviewed over the years. And as we bring this forward, we just never produce the entire document yet. I showed you the link that I think I sent that out to you. It's a pretty extensive PDF that you have to go through and that sort of thing. So these small increment pieces is how we then adopt those things. And Chief Whittam can speak to it in further detail if you'd like to.
So I've been digging. It's quite the endeavor. And so, Chief, I might ask a little just about what was the secondary policy that you said they had updated was the transmittable.
Yeah, so the 2 as Chief Whittam narrated in this is that there's 2 sections, community wildfire protection plan, so there's a plan there, and then transmittable diseases specifically. And maybe that's your question, Mayor.
Yeah, what the changes for the
Chief, can you
transmittable.
address that,
So
please?
under transmittable diseases is the result of the COVID from 2019 to 2020. And Mayor Cahar, you're the reason why this got put in the plan, because the POD did not address local distribution. It addressed countywide distribution. And if you remember, we had the distribution center that was only established at the former Kmart location on State Avenue once they had wound out and completely overwhelmed the downtown parking lot at 7th and Ann. So under the new changes to the Regional program, pushes out more of a POD or point of distribution out to several local areas instead of just having one mass distribution point for the county. So that was one of the items that was brought up during our talks was we have smaller communities that are remote from downtown areas that don't have mass transportation. We have elderly subjects that cannot use mass transportation or we provide transportation or do not have rides to get down there. And under the transmittable diseases was how do we inoculate or get out testing kits or anything else to those residents in the county. So that was one of the big pushes in the update in the 2024 plan was to push out PODs at the local levels to sit there and allow for a mass distribution point that was more equally representative of the communities to hit and highlight at least some of those smaller cities and clusters to sit there and not require so much travel to sit there and issue out the distribution centers.
So essentially, in summary, they're localizing the point of distribution.
There would be the
those
point of distribution,
vaccinations and
yeah.
things, so you don't have to travel so far to get that.
So if we remember, we had the site that was set up over here at the community center parking lot after we had a month or so downtown, another month or so at State Avenue at the old Kmart parking lot. They come down here for 2 or 3 days, 1 day or 2 days a week to allow people to get vaccinated and get the COVID testing done here. So under the new regional L plan is to sit there and not tie up those resources at just a county one distribution level, but to start identifying, addressing that, especially the most vulnerable population dependent upon a disease that is afflicting, to get that out quicker and more rapidly out to the communities instead of saying we're just going to do it in one location. So we would hope that the next time that it would hit, we would not sit there and wait 2 months and have everybody in an uproar going, we can't get this down here, and then start having that portion of the plan put out. So it does identify PODs in the plan, such as our community center being a POD. Our city hall would be a distribution point for personnel wanting to come in and get testing kits if the POD was shut down for that day. So those were kind of identified in a plan of how do we deal with this, because it was never thought of in a mitigation plan before and was only addressed in the response plan.
Thank you for clarifying that. And so in no way does it force upon the population the vaccination in any way?
There is nowhere in there that vaccinations are a required mandate covered in the plan. It is still 100% voluntary if the population wants to get a vaccine. It is just that we are making it more readily accessible for the population to not have to try to sit there and travel 14 miles downtown when they don't have a ride to get to it.
Simply to access.
I'm great with access as
Yeah.
long as it's optional or,
Absolutely.
up to the individual.
These things that change are lessons learned. We never had a COVID before.
Right.
So there's been a lot of lessons learned from that. This is just one piece of it.
Very good. Well, thank you. I appreciate that, Chief. The only other, and I realize that this is a huge document, that has been years in the making, and since then, and probably since they've even completed it, executive orders have come out that probably don't quite jive with the verbiage in the plan, and some of those would seem discriminatory even for residents in our community. And so what I would support, because I know we need to move on and get this checked off of our list, is approving the plan, just striking any verbiage that would be conflicting to Executive Order 13985 or anything that would be deemed discriminatory toward residents in our community.
Who makes that determination?
That was the President of the United States. Under that newest recent plan, most of everything that is in there has removed all DEI inclusions that are in the plan. It just says the citizenry in the plan on the majority of it.
I'm just making sure where that authority would come from. In kind of
I think home rule, local level, if we needed to. I don't think we'd I don't expect that the group that put this together, I know it's a huge regional group, isn't going to come together and change that. But when it comes to policies in our community, I want to make sure that we're not putting our own residents at a further risk if we're in a serious type of emergency situation. So I'd be comfortable in approving the plan, just striking any discriminatory language or language that violates executive orders. 139.85.
Yeah, 139.
The previous executive order, previous minute was rescinded by or rescind.
I'll be a little bit more specific. So January 2025 was an executive order ending radical and wasteful government DEI programs and preferencing. But just in case there's other executive orders or just discriminatory language, I just wanted to make sure we're not adopting a policy in our city that would discriminate against our own residents, if that makes sense.
Saying that we can't get some explicit detail, but maybe in summary, right, Josh, that we could say a presidential executive order, anything in conflict with that, or anything that is, would be discriminatory in nature,
That would be perfect.
something
Yeah.
similar to that. You'll have to make the motion. You'll have to spell that out.
Okay, so how do you want me to say it then? So,
What
I
are you
make a
considering discriminatory? So the issue, I think, comes down to the presidential administration's going back and forth regarding Executive Order 13985 was the Biden administration's executive order called Advancing Racial Equity and Support for Underserved Communities through the Federal Government. And then a more recent order under the Trump administration not sure the legal status of whether it actually rescinded that or gave new guidance to the federal government regarding not having racial preferences within it references DEI, environmental justice throughout Trump executive order, but basically any federal action or policy that would establish some racial preference based on underserved communities. And so as the feds kind of sort out what is federal policy, what's not federal policy, I've noticed a lot of the grant applications have legacy language in it that may not be current law. I think a broad kind of swap policy of the city of Edwardsville to say that we'll adopt a resolution that would adopt the Gwinnett County Regional L Hazard Mitigation Plan, provided that anything in that plan that may have the legal effect of creating discriminatory situations based on race or other protected classes that we would not be. Racial neutrality. Policy.
Correct. Yeah, I just don't think that discrimination in any form would need to be applied in an emergency situation.
Well,
So.
the reason I'm pressing kind of protected classes is
For
to be
sure.
more specific is discrimination occurs all the time.
Right.
With respect to this person needs it, this person doesn't. The question is,
Right.
what is the basis for awarding this community or this person federal or public resources versus another? And there are some classes of people, and there's even case law now kind of bearing this out that the Constitution does not protect racial preferences.
Right, that protected, I realize discrimination. You have to decide who to bring something to first, but when it comes down to it, it shouldn't be a protected class that's discriminated against. Camilla Adcox, Councilman Adcox said so moved. I didn't make the motion, she would have, but then we would need a second if council's on board with that. And that would be adopting this.
You need the motion in the record, whatever that's going to be.
sure. So then would you like for me to say, I would make a motion to adopt resolution 2025-11, the resolution adopting Gwinnett County Regional
hazard mitigation plan, excluding any discriminatory language. Anything else? Okay. Okay, that's what I.
Second.
We have a motion from Councilman Adcox, a second from Councilman Shriver. Will the clerk please call roll? Yes.
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 Item number 8. Thank you, Chief. Item 8, consider request for funding of city park improvements, including multi-purpose court enhancements, public restroom access upgrades, and adding electrical and lighting features, and authorizing city manager to enter into any associated contracts.
Mayor, thank you. Mayor, Council, you have before you the background for item number 8. As stated, we're progressing in phase 1, leaking into phase 2, because we're just in a really good position that we can keep this momentum forward with the park improvements. I think people can certainly see the vision. And I think primarily Brian Hutchison is going to talk to you about the effort staff has made to bring in folks that can do this work without subbing and resubbing and doing that. That's been our primary focus. We've talked to a number of people and companies to come out and look at our project and that sort of thing. And I just want to iterate that we have a policy that says you have to have this bidding, but it's not a statutory, it's not a law, okay? And so it's the best and lowest bids. And so we focused on when we don't have qualified bidders or the bidders, certainly the cost is a provision that we're going to take a look at, but we're kind of discussing these particular contractors as number one, they have relationships with us, but we just didn't exclusively focus on them. Once we brought them in and these other contractors just diverted and added cost or weren't available, that's another piece of it, or they just weren't the right fit for us because they weren't going to be doing the work. So I want to just frame that up, that this is a policy decision and you're the policy body. So if you don't accept this, we can still go out and do this work. More and more you'll hear from Brian, and I'll yield to him in just a minute, that one of the prime contractors, some of these folks in our area are just not available. There's enough work, say, for pickleball, or they only build new ones. And so we have a project that we're introducing you to is a refurbish, right, project. So some of them just simply don't do that particular piece of work. And if they were the contracted piece, they would sub it out to another person that maybe we didn't have a relationship or a contract with. So that's the direction we've been going. We've been working at weeks and weeks. This has not just happened this last week, and we're bringing it before you. So it's been a lot of work. So with all of that background, I'll yield to Brian Hutchison, Public Works Supervisor, and he has a guest to introduce.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. I do have a guest to introduce first. We'll get that out of the way. This is Jackson Rupp, our new park supervisor. His first date was today. I invited him to come here to his first day of city council meeting and hear my presentation on a big advancement for the park, being his office away from the office that he'll be at. So I wanted him to understand the work that we put into it and what we want to invest into our parks. So welcome Jackson aboard. Brings a lot of energy. Looking forward to working with him in the future. So, all right, Council and Mayor, agenda number 8. We requested the city consider authorizing the city manager into an agreement with McConnell Associates, MC Electric, and Omega Door for the park improvements as city manager stated. Phase 1, phase 1B, phase 2, whatever phase you want to call it, adding on to where we started off. Fiscal impact. These are items that were budgeted through the property acquisition or the special sales tax, depending on what job is actually going to be happening down there, what it was budgeted through, for a total of $118,000 for restoration of the futsal court, improvements to the shelter to get where we need to go with the futsal, and then to help our restrooms be ADA friendly and open during the daytime hours. So that's the three things that fall underneath this category. That back in 2024, we decided to make an assessment of the park itself and see what needed to happen. This is a picture of, I'm guessing in 2013 when our futsal ball was first built. Nice, bright blue, brilliant, brilliant, whatever colors, looking real good. To our current stage, is this is what it was 2 days ago. PD helped me get a drone footage of it to see what the surface went. So back in 2024, it was already identified that this surface needed some help, or we were going to lose it. And the money that was invested in 2013 was going to be going by the wayside. So we'd already addressed that there needed to be some surface treatment and potential work going on to it. As pickleball has become more popular and discussion, it was looked at and determined that maybe we should maybe renovate this. We're going to have to go ahead and seal it, restripe it and all that. Let's take a look at it and monitor and see how this court was being utilized. So what is in front of you right now is basically the recommendation that is a guarantee we're going through. We're also experimenting with adding some more fencing and a bench possibly in there. But however, right now we're in talks with NPR, our insurance, make sure there is no liability reasons of having the fences in there. The sites that we had traveled, there wasn't fences between the courts, especially chain link. Benches were outside, just to having a solid structure there if you are playing that you might damage yourself. So we have not heard back from it. The price of the 118 does incorporate being able to do that stuff if it is deemed by NPR that it's okay. But we just want to make sure we're doing our due diligence to make sure there's no liability issue there of somebody getting hurt or recommendations from them to or not to do. I'll refer back to the picture. The colors are a little kind of hard to see if I can remember what it is, but basically, at this point, maybe not. No, I just didn't know if it would point on the left or right of the screen. The red dots, I believe. Okay, the red dots are things that we're removing. So you've got the west and east end red dots, which are the basketball goals. They will be removed. The fences will be closed in. The 4 dots for the futsal court will be removed totally. Those holes will be patched. The basketball goals will be relocated to the west court, which are the black dots. We'll put the basketball goals back in there. So there's a full court basketball. Most of the activity that's on this court is either basketball or little kids riding their tricycles and stuff. So there is a need for the basketball. So we'll transport those basketball goals over to there. The yellow line going down through the middle will be a chain link fence to deviate basketball coming over into the pickleball, and pickleball is going over into the basketball with a gate on the north end up there. The purple line that is in the top there is a bench for the oncoming people. It is still undetermined whether it'll be outside the fence or inside, depending what NPR suggests. The courts have the pickleball courts. There'll be 2 pickleball courts that'll be positioned on that east side. The green lines there, it's not to scale, are pretty close to what they are. This is shown kind of a mock-up if we do the court or we put the bench on the inside, so that it would allow room. If we're not able to put the bench inside there, we may separate them so that there's a little bit bigger gap between them. But we need to leave a path through that north side for anybody that's coming in for basketball can get into the basketball court.
Can I ask a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, you can.
So the fence you were talking about earlier, you're having the insurance checkout would be in between the 2.
In between the green, in between the 2 green squares, and then one on the upper side of the
Okay.
other green square. It would be
And
a
if not,
4-foot.
like you said, I don't see many in between, so.
Any other questions? These are illustrations that I produced. If I didn't show something,
No,
ask.
this is a great job. I will interject. The kids playing basketball all the time, so I'm glad we're keeping the basketball.
Yep.
It was the court itself, the futsal court, which, because we were down there all the time, and kids running around on it. But when the basketball goals went in, they were used all the time. You can use those all year too. So that's, I'm glad they're staying.
Next step, basically the futsal would be McConnell, who is ultimately doing all of this job. They do not subcontract anything. They do the surface sealing, the painting, and all that. So that would be McConnell's part of the job.
Clarification. They have a team that does this work.
They have a crew that does do this work, that builds. They actually build new courts, tennis courts, and stuff like that. As Mark alluded earlier, some of what I was running into it is they only do new, or they sub out their painting. Other companies would sub out their painting. McConnell does the treatment and painting and everything. The only thing they sub out is the electrical work. I'm still waiting to get a dollar amount for their electrical side through their subcontractor that they would want to bring on. So I reached out to MC Electric, who does a lot of our stuff, local company here, very happy, plans a lot of stuff for us, and contacted them to get a price on theirs. This is showing the quote and a software that they have where they can actually go in there and position the lights, tell the computer what lights they're going to use, how high they are, what the brightness is, and it'll pull up on the screen. I know it's hard for the public to see, but you'll see a light rating in there. Any light rating over 10 is inside light, inside brightness. If we were inside here, so basically your brightness that you're seeing here is probably typically a 10. So if you look on that graph there and shows it, you'll see where they're positioning their lights and everything in the playing area is a 10. Make sure that it's lit right.
That's good.
Does that include lighting inside the shelter?
So with this price it is in here, yes, it does. It includes in improving the lights in the shelter, because to get this established, we need to update the lighting to, they'll be pulling power from the lights from the shelter house. It's old, falling apart, not up to par. So it'll be also updating that with new lights in there, more lights, higher lights. The pickleball court will have a button that you push. It's on a timer, runs for an hour, goes off by itself, just so you don't have to leave them on or off. The shelter, probably just be a light switch. People probably down there for more than an hour. But I wanted to have that switch in there so it wasn't left on overnight, because those lights will draw some light. So we an hour push button inside there where they can push it and go back to it.
You gotta put a new box in the shelter house for you?
New box, new meter can. It'll actually, I think what they have is the meter will go on the pool, and then they'll bring everything into the shelter with it just a switch instead of having the breaker box and fuse box. Everything in the shelter right there when you go in, it'll be secluded over to the side and then fed over to the shelter as well.
Question might be offset because has there been vandalism down there?
There is. That's one thing with this lights that when I brought MC Electric is I wanted their lights to be up taller, higher up into the shelter, because now they're at an 8-foot height. I'd say on the average about every 3 weeks we're replacing the lights in there because of vandalism, people just breaking the lights out. So increase the height of them where they can't reach them, and then put more in to compensate going up so we have the light in there.
That's all in this.
That's all in this price right here. Yes, sir.
Sporting Kansas City okay with all of this?
It's our pickleball side, we built. Finding how it is. The other one's just simply, it's not being used. You can still kick a ball in there. Still play
I'm just saying
basketball.
Sporting Kansas City is okay.
Well, that's, we didn't reach
So
out.
they
to
don't
them
have anything to say about it.
now. We didn't reach out to them.
That's a simpler question.
It's as simple as it's not an agreement, can't make, use it to our advantage. We'll have soccer fields. It's just, again, it's skateboards, the little tricycles, I think this would offer basketball. Even at Waterfest, we had, people out there enjoying basketball. It's hot and everything else. When I go down there, I see youngsters playing some basketball and that sort of thing. So multi-purposing this, one way or the other, was always the objective. But when we looked at the hard surface of, remember those on the futsal, those nettings are all metal hard. It's hard to rearrange the whole thing. So if there is some call for futsal itself, so if we want to go down and we want to team futsal, we can get some of the softer portable netting to put out there on the basketball side, and it'll still work.
The lighting sounds like a good idea. Remember Chuck Stites was wanting lighting down there when that was first built. Finally, maybe it's gonna actually happen. But
I think Brian can confirm that he looked at the pricing from those days, and it's nearly the same price.
A little bit lower from the same company of what it was in 2013.
How that happened, who knows?
yeah.
Right,
More efficient lighting.
right, right. Is there any electrical work needed at the concession stand?
We're getting there too.
Next.
So that's coming up.
Phase 3B, something, something, something. We're working our way north. Yeah.
We're blending our phases.
And just for clarity, so the restrooms at the concession stand, those are open for the public?
They are currently not.
Not, they're going to be.
Part of this money is making them available to the public and redesigning the concession stand
Right.
to accommodate ADA and open during daylight hours. That is with the picture in front of you here. If you haven't been down to the concession stand, we spent a lot of time in moving stuff around and added sidewalks, and the restroom issues came up. Started talking and bringing contractors down to see what we could do. And the best recommendation that we've had that we've come forward with is this would be the west end of the restroom. There's some challenges here, but we found resolutions to get through all of it. The red line down at the bottom is we'll be adding another 4 foot of sidewalk on the back of it because you have that air conditioner sitting there that is kind of in the way. However, the best thing to do is to move that air conditioner over to closer to the center of the building, remove the poles that the chain link went around the air conditioner, either cage it or fence it low, but add that 4 foot sidewalk so ADA wheelchairs could get around it without the expense of having to move it, expand that concrete on the backside. We have the room to do it before we get to the sewer pump that you see in the manhole there. So we will extend the sidewalk another 4 foot for the length of the back slab there. Cut through the concrete walls. Looking at the screen I'm looking at, my right would be the men's restroom. Not to scale, as you can tell, the doors are bigger and smaller, just angle the picture, but place a door there for the men's, and then place a door on the opposite side for the women's restroom the way it's designed. And then, like I said, they will have ADA buttons in that as well. There is some improvements to the electrical system in that door code as the fact they've got to run power to it and all that. There's significant power down to the concession stand right now. The plugs and stuff like may not be ideally in the right spot, but they will have to increase basically the west half, improve the west half of the concession stand bathroom area to accommodate this stuff here. And this right here is being recommended to use Omega Door, who, if you haven't been over to the community center, they're the ones who put the door over there, and they're like super, super nice on that. So that's the recommendation we're putting forward and the game plan that we have. Just to finalize this, we just recommend, the staff recommends the funding, the amount of $118,000 and authorization for the city manager into contracts with McConnell and Associates for the pickleball renovation, MC Electric for the improvements to the shelter and lights to the pickleball court or universal court, and Omega Door for adding the restroom doors on the back of the concession stand with ADA openers in there. And doing this also, it gives us an advantage inside that concession stand. That hallway that's in there, we'll leave the doors in there, but we'll reverse them so that they're locked from the bathrooms coming in. And it'll allow Jackson to have a little bit more storage space down there and keeping his immediate tools and stuff that he needs during games and fields in there instead of having to traipse out to the bigger barn to get them, that we can readily available set that concession up with supplies that he needs on a day-to-day basis instead of having to haul it back and forth during the seasons.
Brian, you didn't really speak to the door control piece, which is important here, the door, the locking mechanisms and the control of access.
They will be on a timer where they can open it. We can set them whatever time we want, whether it's daylight hours or park hours, where they open up at 8 o'clock and they automatically lock at a certain time as well.
That is
Or they can be
fantastic.
locked down all the time. Whatever we choose, it's going to be a computerized lock
That
set.
is fantastic, because all you have to do is watch the news.
I have a
Makes
question
me angry.
on the pickleball court, the outer fence. Have you been down to Wyandotte County Park where they have that pickleball at?
Right there when you come across the bridge.
So you've been at, have you seen
Yep.
it? And you know how they have the thing on the outside where you can put your
Yeah.
paddle? I think that would be a good idea too, because I've been talking to a lot of people and they're excited about this. And we're going to be the only ones on the west end. There's not a pickleball court on the west end. You got Wyandotte County Park, and then you have Clam Park, and everybody goes to those places, and they're always busy. And so the lighting piece is going to be good, because somebody else mentioned that to me. They're like, you should do lighting because nobody wants to play in the heat like this right now. But I mean, just as long as it's like you're able to put your place there so that people can take turns, I think would be a really good addition to it.
I think that was our plan, kind of somewhat copy that,
Yes.
that bench is on the outside.
On the outside, yeah.
It just kind of raises questions if there's hardened surface, hardened obstacles, if you will. If in play, there's a 4-foot fence between the two courts, does that add some risk of liability? We're just trying to mitigate that. Our insurance is okay with it. I don't mind some kind of thing, but maybe not. There could be some different source of division of the court, like a netting of some sort, maybe. Mainly that is, so if the ball goes to the other court, you're not just running over there and interrupting play and things like that. But on the ones we've seen, there isn't that, and we just want to make sure if we're going to put any kind of hardened surface inside that there's not some risk to this. That's it. And these costs include those features, whether they're inside or outside of that.
Seems like a whole lot is getting done. I believe when we were talking about this before, it was close to 180 for just a couple pickleball courts, and now we're getting 2 pickleball courts, updated electrical, lighting, the bathrooms, so we're not using a porta potty. I mean, there's some great enhancements that are tangible resources for our community that they'll see, and I think that's great. And you said this is funded with special sales tax and property acquisition.
Yes, property acquisition, which is facilities. That's just a side name of the account, but it's municipal facilities, same as we invested with the particular parks building, parks maintenance and public works maintenance building. So this applies because that facility is a municipal facility, and we're just going to make a renovation.
When can they start?
I told you the other day, I can't remember what
Sooner than later.
sooner than later. I think the biggest concern is all that stuff needs to be removed. The footsalls need to be removed, that patched, basketball moves, and the wrapping to the paper is the painting and the ceiling that needs to be done over 50 degrees. I think they're thinking they could be in here and have the ceiling started in October. October could be hot or October be cold. But I think the last time that I talked to Cooper with McConnell, they could probably start removing some of that stuff and getting working on it in the next 3 to 4 weeks. With a time frame should still match into getting it done by the 1st of November, end of October-ish, before that 50-degree weather comes.
And we do wish they could start summer, but they're that busy. We had to get on the calendar before this approval. We said placeholders there. So.
Shouldn't be any problem handling the 50 degrees in 2 weeks.
No.
There's that prep work before we can do some of the hard construction. But how about the doors, Brian?
The doors, Omega said there was a 3-week on getting those built, and probably they do contract out cutting, sawing out that block. So I think the majority of it, the doors should be done before then, but I think getting on the schedule with the saw company was about 3 weeks out. There again depends on the weather. A small job like this, another job falls in, he said, Brian, they could always come down and call and say they're going to cut in 2 weeks. But if I get on their schedule tomorrow, they said within 3 weeks, they'll probably have the doors up and in.
Does that conflict with the soccer start, or could we get it done before then? Do we have any idea? The first day.
In all reality, I think we could come up with a plan to proceed on with this and stay away from soccer. We won't close the other entrances down. We may just have to cone around and barricade off the side, but I think we can proceed on. It could involve it, but then we're just getting later into the year. I mean, this will be less of an inconvenience than trying to get grass to grow at 100-degree weather out than and rain the whole time too. So it'd be less of a convenience than what that was. So we could get through it.
Well, I would have to say, I know Councilmember Malat has praised you numerous times with your care, your research, your homework, your hard work, and none of this goes unnoticed. And I've been on the Parks Board for 24 years. And this, I know we've done things, we've done some upgrades, done some changes, but this is a long time coming, and I think the city needs this. It's going to be just all positive. And I know many, many people will appreciate it. So thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Did we have a motion to approve?
I'd like to make a motion to approve. Second.
With the motion from Councilman Shriver, second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll? Yes.
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 All right. Item number 9, here is staff presentation on the pavement service evaluation and rating assessment.
For good news, Jason Fundus from PEC is going to make the presentation. He's traveled from Russell, Kansas, from another meeting just to come back and squeeze this in, and we do appreciate that. He has just a slight from these slides, a little bit of an update as he point those out as he goes. Long time coming. I apologize for no background. I really wanted Jason to lead this whole thing, so I didn't muddy up the water of some narrative here, but we'll turn it over to Jason Fundus. Am I saying that?
Yes,
Yeah,
you
okay.
are.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mark.
PEC. Thank you, Jason.
Mayor and council, good evening. As Mark mentioned, Jason Fundus with PEC. I lead our municipal transportation group in Northeast Kansas. And so we've been working with Mark, Doug, and Brian on the pavement assessment for the city, where we went out, manpower, and evaluated all the streets of the city to come up with a rating system. And so using that rating system, we used the PACER method, which rates your roads from 1 to 10, utilizing a visual guideline basis. And so with that, we used an application to collect all the data of every road, looking at different aspects of it, whether it's rutting, raveling, whatever the pavement is doing, to kind of give it a rating itself, and then come up with a maintenance plan for the city for the next 5 years. So I'm gonna kind of go through a little bit of background on the treatment. So as I said, the rating system's from 1 to 10. The 1 and 2s usually mean the road is in terrible condition and needs to be reconstructed. There's no way of saving the roadway as it stands. 3 to 4 is doing a little bit less of a reconstruction, more of a rehabilitation, fixing a majority of the road, but not all of it. 5 and 6 is more of a preservation. 7s is routine maintenance. 8s meaning little, no maintenance. 9 and 10, absolutely no maintenance, or a new roadway would fall into those categories. So with that, there's different applications that can be done for those roadways depending on those applications. And here's just a list of different applications that go through it. I'm going to go over a few of the main ones that we've been talking about with the city here in just a little bit. So just an idea of all the different things that can be done to the roadways depending on what rating comes out of that. So, and then with those ratings, all the different ways of how the time goes and what the roads do from there, whether there's routine maintenance taking place on those roads, or just time of the road itself falling apart, or needing a little bit of maintenance on it. So this is hard to read on here, but just the different areas of all the applications that we actually looked at and how that all falls in, and then what the cost of that looks like for each application as well. We also looked at cities around this area and other larger cities that we've seen of different types of applications that are using, so that we were using like applications so that you could get local contractors to come in and get the best price to do these type of rehabilitations or maintenance on the roadways as we go through it. So this is kind of just the background of all the different types of maintenance that does take place. And then kind of the lifespan of that maintenance, looking at the main ones that I'm going to go over here, which is the fog seal being less costly, but also doesn't hold up for the longest period of time, all the way up to a mill and overlay, which is a little bit more costly, but will hold up for another 10 years or around that for that. So starting off with the fog seal, that kind of just is a spray application that kind of just gives you a surface seal over that. And usually we do this on pavement that's already in really good condition, just something to kind of give it a new surface to help with the wearing of traffic on that roadway. Chip and seal, I think everybody should be familiar with that, and you guys use that quite often. We're using a binder, aggregate chips, and it kind of just rolls in and creates a brand new surface on top of the existing surface. Microsurfing is very similar to that, but it's more of a mix between an asphalt paver and then the chip and seal method, where it is using a different polymer application moving forward. And then the mill and overlay goes on for what it says, where you take off the top surface of the asphalt and then come in with a new application throughout. So what we did is, once we had all the roads rated, we created a GIS database for the city to utilize moving forward. So this gives all the current condition of the roadways from 1 to 10, and then we split those out as well between what type of roadway it is, meaning an arterial roadway carrying a lot of traffic down to your local roadways, and as well as the ones that are maintained by KDOT or are considered private roadways, which the city is not responsible for maintaining. So we have different ways to be able to categorize that, so the city can actually look at that in real time and then make adjustments to it as improvements are done on the roadways moving forward. So this is a live database in ArcGIS Online. The city has access to it to be able to move forward and adjust the roadways as we proceed. So as we currently have it, this is the standings of the ratings that we have as of today in 2025. And as the maintenance continues for the next 5 years, we'll be able to adjust that and see how everything kind of averages out, how things are holding up, which methods are working, which methods are not working. And that way we can kind of help plan the cost of the repairs in the future moving forward. So as I said, here's kind of an update a little bit that talks about what type of roadways and what the averages are. So for your arterial or your larger roadways carrying the most traffic, your average ratings are coming in at 5.7, which is pretty good. Usually we're looking, like I said, in that 7 range is meaning very minimal maintenance to no maintenance. So getting closer to 7 is better. The collector roadways are just a little bit smaller, but are still carrying a large amount of your traffic, coming at 4.9. And then your local roads or your neighborhood roadways are coming in at 6.0 for an average. So overall, for the entire city, roadways that are maintained by the city comes in with an average of 5.6 currently as of today. So if we took this and then started to look at talking with Brian and staff to figure out what is the best way and which roadways need to be addressed first in the 5-year plan. And so what we started doing is preparing what year 1 through year 5 looks like for different types of plans. And what we wanted to do is package similar types of repairs together, so that way you're getting one contractor, the best price, and then we can do the most repairs with that one kind of package at a time. So year 1, we looked at some of more of the local roadways, the smaller roadways in the neighborhoods, and how can we repair those. Those make the biggest impact to repairing the residential roadways, but you can do that during the day when most people are at work, so you're creating less disturbances during the working time for the contractors to be getting done quicker, and less impacts to the residents as they be able to get away, go to work, come back, and the work would be concluded for that day. So you're creating less disruptions for them to have access to and from their properties. So what we started with in year 1 was looking at doing microsurfacing and some spot repairs for the roadways in the neighborhoods here. And then they're listed there from Castle Park to Rock Ridge, and some estimated cost of what those look like. And as Mark mentioned, I got updates driving back today on the average road ratings and what they will do after these improvements take place. So in year 1, we have microsurfacing spot repairs to these neighborhood roadways. That also includes crack sealing prior to those repairs. So you kind of seal any of the cracks before you do the microsurfacing, coming in right around $390,000 there. It's listed there. We have a total listed between $430,000 with contingencies built in there. We were looking for that $400,000 range to start off. repairs this year. That will bring the average up to 5.8 from the 5.6 originally. So making those improvements to those local roads have already started to raise the overall average for the city. Year two, we kind of have two options here for year two. Looking at the beginning with more of your collectors on 102nd or 98th Street and your minor arterial roadways. Here doing a double chip and seal with some full depth spot repairs, coming in roughly right around the $410,000 range for that. After doing this, that would bring your ratings almost up to 6 at 5.9. Also, this is second option for year two. Instead of doing the double chip and seal, looking at doing a recycling mill and overlay where they would come back and mill up the 3 inches and put that same 3 inches right back down. It's kind of a train connectivity of how they would do that. One of the things that we were looking at that the city was concerned with was how much material is there now, and we need to be building that thickness up rather than taking it away and just putting back the same. So this option here gives you a 3-inch recycled mill and overlay, and then an additional 2 inches on top. So you'd be increasing the thickness of the roadway by 2 inches. This costs us a little bit more than the last option at about the 400,000, coming in about 675 for this option. But it was an option to be looked at for the maintenance plan.
You said that's a recycle and then put new on top of it?
Yes. So we would recycle 3 inches that's existing there, and then put an additional 2 on top.
Smaller, maybe version of Old Town will recycle with those thinner roads.
Mhm.
Right. These two particular streets, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't mean to interrupt too much.
Nope.
But what we see is we have a driving surface problem. We may have a good base in some of these areas, but we certainly have a driving surface problem and maybe a good problem as well. One is really expensive to address because we're going to reconstruct the whole road. But in some of these cases, we want driving surface to be not so dangerous,
Right.
and more amenable to traffic, and that sort of thing. So this was kind of the point here. The priority was, what can we do with what we have and improve upon that? Specifically, north of 32 on 98. That's a great example of we're going to have brand new roads north of there. However, what do we do with this section that may be not funded for 6 years or at all? So what do you do with that?
And the reason that this option was in here is exactly what Mark was saying when we had our meeting on it, that they wanted us to look at this option on 98th and 102nd. And there's a slide later that I have that I'll show you here in just a little bit, looking at full reconstruction of 102nd and 98th, what that would look like for a capital improvement project down the road. So we looked at both options of what can we do for a maintenance aspect now or in year two for the 5-year plan, and then what does that look like for a capital improvement project 5, 6, 8 years down the road, or if funding becomes available and you're able to get some sort of a grant application accepted to do another project on 98th or 102nd.
With this, does it do anything about ditches? Or is it just putting asphalt out to a ditch and then it's going to be the same ditch?
Yeah, so it would be the same ditch realistically, but if we're adding 2 inches, then most likely, yes, we would have grading on the side to tie the new ditches in. So if we're increasing the top 2 inches taller, we want to do some sort of grading to tie in those existing ditches. Yes, that would include this 675. Like I said, these are just estimates of what we're trying to ballpark for the city to help with planning opportunities for future maintenance on these roadways.
So 98th Street, that would be primarily what we'd think of phase 3.
Phase 3.
Okay.
Exactly. North of K32 to metropolitan circle-ish area.
So like I said, this was an option 2 for year 2, with option 1 being just a double chip and seal, but it's the same roadways, 102nd and 98th. So then option year 3, we're looking at kind of doing a combination of neighborhood as well as with the Crestwood neighborhood, and then also looking at 104th Street. This year 3 doing a mill and overlay, also with a recycled mill and overlay with an additional 2-inch overlay on top on Crestwood as well. So this total here coming up to the 500,000-ish range, and then with this we would jump over the average of 6 to a 6.1 if these maintenance are going on. And these are all just adding up from year 1, year 2, year 3, just increasing the average of all the city streets.
Repeat what the number was going to go to on that.
6.1.
6.1.
Yes. So then year four doing a microservicing and spot repair, so a little bit less impactful to the roadways, but looking at Edwardsville Drive, as well as between 4th and 9th, just south of K32. So looking at that option here with this neighborhood, as well as the arterial of Edwardsville Drive, this would bring a total cost of roughly up to about $700,000 for maintenance this year. But as you can see, that's a long stretch of roadway, which just kind of adds up more cost. And it doesn't have to be that long of a section. It can definitely be shortened or more restrictive of certain areas that need to be addressed at a time. And then at year four, this would bring your average up to 6.3. And then looking at year five, we're kind of looking at the north end and south end of town, Riverview Avenue and Woodland area. So that would do a double chip and seal here, and then a 2-inch mill and overlay. So this year five bring a total cost right around the $770,000, and this would bring a rating up to 6.6. So we're getting much closer to that 7 range for an average of roadways throughout Edwardsville. And this also takes into account the good roads that we've already rated well and what they're starting to come down to as years progress on. So we're looking at it holistically for the entire town and making sure all the roadways are ones that have been done or coming down, starting to come down, ones that are being addressed or getting brought up to that newer level. So that's what this kind of looks like. And then the next slide is what I had mentioned, looking at 102nd and 98th Street, kind of broke it up into 3 segments, splitting 102nd. This is a capital improvement estimate for future roadways down the road. So, looking at the different aspects here, anywhere from the highest at about the lowest at 3.9 million on 102nd up to 4.6 for 98th Street. Looking at full reconstruction, and this would match what you guys have already done on 98th to help that full impact of the roadway, curbs and gutters, sidewalks, however we would need to address that. This was just kind of a ballpark estimate of what that capital improvement project could look like, and then give the city an idea of what type of grants they would be eligible for moving forward if they want to apply for those types of things. And other than that, I'm here to help answer any questions on this plan. I mentioned to Mark earlier, getting these averages, that was kind of the last piece that we were trying to put together on our part. So we're hoping to deliver this report to the city here, whether it's this week or early next week, to kind of finalize the 5-year maintenance plan.
As soon as I receive it, I'll give you that. So a real close-up look
Some
at
of
some
it
of
was
that
really
fine print.
small.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And as you can see, that's exactly why I didn't summarize this. I wanted to see the presentations first. I've seen some of this material. So
How's the rating compared to some of the other towns at our size? We kind of on par with all the other little, like Russell, Kansas, or Edgerton, Kansas, or whatever.
Yeah, I was actually telling Mark, Edgerton just put out an RFQ this month as well to do this exact same thing with their roadways there. So we met with them to talk about what we had just completed here in Edwardsville to do the same in Edgerton. But yes, the roadways are very similar. The same type of repairs is what we're seeing, whether it's the chip and seals, the spot repairs, crack sealing, as well as going into full mill and overlay or full reconstruction projects. So realistically, I think everything is very comparable to what we're seeing across the board in Kansas for different communities.
And we're at about a 5 rating.
Yeah, so right now your average is right at the 5.1 or 5.8 or 5.6 currently. So that's right about where we're seeing most people at, and just trying to get them into that 7 or as close to 7 as we can. That will just get you to having routine maintenance, but you're still going to have issues that you're going to have subgrade failures that you're going to have to go out and do full depth patching on. Those type of things just happen with the way the soils move and the rock layers move.
I'll point out that intersection that you're concerned about at 102nd Riverview, that's a subgrade failure. And so you have to cut that out. That's an example.
No, I have to.
Could I ask Jason to talk about something that over the years we've shunned away from, and the only time we've really done it since I've been here was in our parking lot, which is chip and seal. He's mentioned a couple of times double chip and seal, something that Overland Park uses a lot. Brian speaks highly of it. I know it's not a fancy way of doing the roads. But what I do like that I've learned about it, it adds some surface structure to the roadway. And so we're kind of building it up and reinforcing it. And if we seal that right, some of those roads can last quite a long time. As a standard of practice around the country, this is used.
So yes, one of the things that we have found using chip and seal is the amount of curing time that's needed. Chip and seal within 30 minutes to an hour, it's fully cured where cars can travel over it. Whereas we're seeing with microsurfacing, which is that next level up from chip and seal, you're talking somewhere in the 4 to 8 hours of cure time that you have to keep the roadway at least reduced to minimal traffic to make sure that the roadway is curing fully out and you don't have to come back and do some other type of sealing going on. So the double chip and seal was a great idea that Brian had brought up of is this a good option to move forward with, and we're seeing that being used a little bit more commonly now. Is just doubling up that application because the cure time is so less, you can open it back up to traffic and then you don't have to worry about access issues.
I thought that when they did the parking lots here, and even when we used to chip and seal these streets, it seemed to me like they should have run a roller over them a few times, and they're just rock, loose. I mean, the haydite is just loose.
Mm-hmm.
It's something new to me, so I didn't know if it was quality or not. It's not quality. We wouldn't hire those folks again. I'm saying it out loud. It wasn't a great job.
They did a micro lay on 32 highway a few years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm.
Could you see if they could do that again?
On 32, I can put in calls if you'd like me to.
What
It's pretty bad.
I'd like to avoid whatever we did on Wooden that seemed like we just painted the street and then it was faded and gone in a couple years. It probably accomplished something, but it didn't seem to hold up to time at all. And one thing I want to be sure of is while we're looking at these maintenance plans, that as we're investing in our streets, that we've really been plugging away for quite some time. I know if you don't live on a street that's been improved in the last 4 years or so, it may not seem like it, but we've invested substantially in our streets in the last several years. But we want to make sure that we're continuing to maintain the investments that we have made, and so that we're not fixing and then this is crumbling now that we fixed 15 years ago. And so I just want to make sure that that's part of whatever plan that we're incorporating.
Some of your first presentation there
Yeah.
kind of showed where you go build this new road, and the next thing you know, it's our Wooden road. Because I remember the day that was a great road. That was pretty long.
Mhm.
And that slurry seal that we used was somewhat experimental. It's good for driveways and maybe parking lots. But as you can see, it just simply didn't hold up to any traffic.
Dusty had done that. He investigated, and that was an experimental
It
thing.
was.
Mhm.
We won't do that. In a sense, you will put together from all of this material summary statement and
Yep.
kind of walk through somewhat a plan.
Yes,
Outline
yeah.
this.
So that is what we have finalizing now is putting together that 5-year plan. As I just showed the slides there, we'll have it more in summary of what each aspect is and cost breakdowns for each one moving forward. So that way the city will have that information and can utilize it however you guys like.
Bigger fonts requested.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see more of those reds and yellows turn to blues and greens.
Mhm.
And one thing that I think is important to mention, even though it's not it's toward the end of this presentation, is we're finishing up phase 1 of 98th Street now. But just to point out for our public, especially, that was planned years and years ago. I don't believe our current administration would necessarily be doing the sidewalks and multi-purpose trails and the long areas where there aren't houses, huge retaining walls. And so what I like to see is these plans that you guys are bringing before us this evening that match our community a little bit better. It makes sense to have sidewalks where we have residents, and that's fantastic. Not so much to have huge retaining walls and multi-purpose trail where there's nobody. And so I really like that shift. I think that it lines up more with our community and what they're looking for. They love the sidewalks where there's houses, but kind of prioritizing the funding to improve the streets where people are is wonderful. And so I think that we've been looking forward to this presentation for a while, and I'm real excited to get things implemented and more streets fixed and moving forward.
It certainly helps the staff to have a basis for a strategic well, part of our spending. And what I'd like to transition very quickly is we have opportunities to do more, but not with the cash we have. There's no way. He's built this in a certain way because we kind of gave him the budget and said, how can you build on this? If we knew in 5 years that we're going to spend $400,000 every year, but we needed a couple extra $100,000 in 5 years to do these things that they planned for us, for example, you will be disappointed in the progress. You will see some of this happening. But remember, we've done plenty of work, but it's hard to remember the next year that you did it, or the citizen who lived there. Oh yeah, it was 3 years ago they just did this road, right? Because we do a road and we don't come back to, upgrade it, maintain it, that sort of thing. But there may be, I have opportunities to explore some other mechanisms through debt financing, which we've had an education on the last 24 months. And we know that we're in a pretty good place. And we could probably accomplish a lot more things by some debt structuring that would then get us a lot farther along. I'm repeating that again, is that this little bit of maintenance money is maintenance money. That's what we'll spend on the maintenance. But some of these reconstruction opportunities that we have, and we can do a little more, maybe with more funding that doesn't just tap into our coffers every year for nearly reconstruction opportunities or that sort of thing. And we don't seem like we're gaining any ground. So I can work with our financial advisors, Piper Jaffray, and I'm sorry, Parker Sandler now, right? Sorry, my old name. And work through that along with this plan, and we can give you some, hey, this might be an option for us to carry this out a little sooner, a little faster, and then we have this money on hand, and it's debt that we can probably take on that won't cost us as much as we think. And for example, we do need to have some sort of serious discussion about 98th Street. It's a bigger project than we think. You saw $4.6 million. We don't know that that's probably just construction costs. We got pre-construction, you've got right-of-way easements, all these other things that really add up to these costs. And so $4.6 million. Now, do we want to spend maybe a couple million on that and do it right in some resurfacing, that sort of thing? But those are the conversations we can have based on this and where we can then get money from, right? What bank account can we have and that sort of thing, so we can move these maybe a little faster, a little bigger projects that make more of a lasting impact. So what I'd like to do is bring you some sort of plan based on this material with some financing mechanisms that we can choose from, and we don't even have to select those. We can just go on through the coffers of Special Highway. Remember, Special Highway had sci-fi in it. Doesn't have that. I don't know if it's ever coming back. So now we're back to just the minimal contributions to that. Special sales tax funds only go so far, and the general fund revenue is only so much. So you combine all that together, that's not very much money to do big projects or road projects. Just simple maintenance. It's pretty tough every year, and if you keep losing funding in those sources, it may be difficult to even do some of these other things as you saw every year in the plan ramps up the cost, right? So I would like permission to maybe move forward on that, and that you would be interested in hearing a formal presentation on maybe a financing mechanism based on what we've been presented here and the timeline, say, the 5-year maybe financing mechanism timeframe through our financial advisor.
I think it's worth looking into. We need a way to move forward. I would also encourage every member on the council, but every member of our community to reach out to your unified government commissioners and mayor, and not just one commissioner, but the entire board of commissioners. Sci-fi is back on the table for discussion this year, and that brought over $400,000 into our infrastructure funding for the city. And you'll notice a lot of these projects are around $400,000. So that makes a huge impact on our city budget and our ability to do things in our community. And so now is the time to reach out to those commissioners and encourage them. They are taking a huge portion of our tax revenue, and we see very little of it back here. So to have sci-fi returned is vital for this next year. So thank you. Any other questions from council? All right, thanks
Thank
for
you, guys.
coming. Thank you. Have a great evening.
With that, Mayor, I'm gonna proceed and bring something before the council for discussion, and then we can decide whether we want to move on or not.
Thank you. Item 10, here's staff presentation on the progress of the fiscal year 2025 budget.
I'll turn this over to Mr. Doug Gerber.
Everybody, as Chantal was pulling up the presentation, as you recall, about this time last year, we started doing these quarterly financial presentations just to keep you in the know about what our finances look like, specifically with the general fund. As you know, I typically only do a couple of slides, and then any questions that you might have. So now that it's pulled up, we'll get started. Slide you've seen many times. Again, just one of the best practices for financial management is quarterly budget updates, and that's something we've tried to bring to you over the last year. You can see here the comparison between general fund revenue and expenditures. So you can see that the budget for revenue for the general fund was 8.6 million. So far, we've taken in just shy of 5.8 million, which is about 67%. So again, this is through the second quarter, so halfway through the year. But as always, I will give you the caveat that it's a little bit misleading because we get our biggest single source of revenue by this time in the year, and that's property tax. And so I'm not saying we're not on track because I believe we are, but it's just we're not 67% on track. We're going to end up very close to 8.6 million in my estimation. Expenditures were almost right on the nose, 8.4 in expenditures, and right now we're at 4.1, which is just a little bit less than 50%. Any questions on either one of those? Okay. And then, as we've talked about many times, these are the 5 biggest general fund revenue sources. They generate 80% of the revenue for the general fund. These 5 categories. So you can see property tax, we budgeted 3.3 million, we've got 3.2, 97%, which is very typical for us as well. There's typically a 3% delinquency, which sort of trickle in over the year. We actually have a delinquency category, but so we'll get maybe 40 or 50,000 throughout the rest of the year from those. That's a typical number for us and a pretty good number actually. Sales tax is actually at 38%, so that is not necessarily trending low because that sales tax number includes the revenue number of 1.9 includes 450,000 for the sales tax vote, and as you know, we didn't start collecting that until April, and even though it officially started in April, but it's likely that stores took a while to catch up, and maybe May they really started doing it. So really, there's only 1 or 2 months of that actual tax in there. So that's not anything that I'm particularly concerned about at this point. The use tax, you can see, is at 57%, 363,000 out of 630. Franchise fees were pretty much right on the nose at 560 for the budget, and we've collected 259. So that's 46%. And then the 5th biggest category is court fines, and we are at 251 and 54%. So again, overall, we're trending well on our major revenues, I would say. Expenditures, I would also say that we are trending well. You can see that administration is 842 out of 1.8, which is about 45% of the budget. Both police and fire are hovering right around the 50% mark, and I know both chiefs do their best to just keep us on budget and still trying to accomplish things with kind of the budget we have this year. Court is at 44%. For various reasons, Parks is only at 33%, only spending 80,000 out of 236. But obviously, there's a few reasons for that. We've had a salary vacancy for one thing, and there just weren't as many expenses in the spring for some of the sports. So it's a good thing overall. And then Public Works, Brian continues to keep the budget on track at 46% of 463. I believe those are the next, kind of what's next. We'll need to complete our 2026 budget work and begin, as Mark said, we'll talk about the 2025 CIP, getting that plan in front of you so that we can begin our road maintenance for this halfway through the 2025 year. But better late than never. So we were waiting on this information, not waiting on PEC necessarily, but we didn't want to do it in the dark. So I think it's going to be a good thing. So with that, I will stand for questions if there are any.
Like we're on track.
We are on track. That's the message I would give you.
Very good. Thank you very much. Item number 11 here, staff presentation on fiscal year 2026 budget.
Here, we'll keep it with Doug Gerber.
I get to keep talking, so
Yes.
Hopefully that works okay. While Chantal is pulling this up, the one thing I want to emphasize is that we heard you at the last city council meeting, and we want to start the budgeting discussion with 2025 as our baseline. If that makes sense. So we heard that, and we wanted to try to take that into consideration. And so what you'll see is taking that into consideration, and then what we think some necessary additions need to be for the 26 budget, and then how that factors into an overall budget. Obviously, we have been working on this because we couldn't just have started 2 weeks ago. So we do have some idea of what a budget might look like, but we don't want to throw it in front of you, and then, as you've talked about, have you be forced to cut things and that sort of thing. So we, again, tried to take that into consideration. There we go. Here's our calendar. Hard to believe that we've really been talking about this since May. It's also hard to believe we are at the end of July. So a couple more meetings left to talk about the budget. We have this meeting, and the next meeting we will hopefully have a general fund wrap-up discussion, and then begin talking about the other funds, special sales tax, special highway, those sorts of things, get into those, talk through those. Then hopefully the last meeting in August we'll be able to sort of finalize what we're thinking about, and then we have set the public hearing for the R&R and the budget adoption as September 8th. You did that at your last meeting. And then the final step is we have to complete a bunch of nonsense paperwork and then get that to the county clerk by the beginning of October. Just a reminder of the budget priorities we talked about from the beginning of this process. One of the most important ones to us continues to be a balanced budget. We don't want to deficit budget any longer in Edwardsville. It doesn't leave them good. So, okay, so I'll walk you through this, and then we can see what kind of questions there are. As you know, at your last meeting, you adopted a maximum mill levy, which can still change, but for sure, it's already been reduced by 1 mill. So what this chart does is reflect that. It reflects a 1 mill reduction. So for the 26 revenues, for a 1 mill reduction in the general funds, so going from 29 to 28 mills, that generates overall about $9.1 million in revenue. The FY 25 adopted expenditures, so the baseline of expenditures that we wanted to talk about, was 8.4 million. So that's the number that was adopted by this group last year. So all things being equal, with 26 revenue calculated versus 25 expenditures as a baseline, that would leave a surplus of 674,000. Does that make sense? So what those numbers do not include, though, are the following things. And I'm glad to send this to you so you can have it. But on the revenue side, it does not include any funding for the library. You know, that has the potential to change, but right now we don't know, so it doesn't include anything. On the expenditure side, what it does not include are any sort of pay and benefit adjustments. Right now we're calculating to be 766. It does not include interest expense that we talked about at your last discussion, putting that 150 in the budget, putting everybody to spend spend as they see fit, so it doesn't include that. It doesn't include property insurance increase, about 40,000. It doesn't include any library expense. And again, I just programmed in my initial draft budget, the draft I'm working on, I programmed in a quarter of the year salary only. Because as we've talked about, we probably want to get somebody on board next October, right? So they can start doing what librarians do to get ready to have a library. So salary and benefits, I just took a stab at that at about 37.5. PD, vehicle and contracts, there's obviously vehicles are getting to be more expensive and there's some contract increases from the PD. And then fire equipment adjustments of 18,000. So most of the departments submitted to us a pretty bare bones budget again. So those are just some of the more major adjustments that were made or requested from the departments. So if you add those expenditures up, it's a little over $1 million. And so if you add that $1 million to the FY25 baseline, it gets you a total potential expenditures for FY26 of 9.4 million versus revenue of 9.1 million, which leads to a deficit of 374,000. So I'll stop there and see what the next slide. I kind of walk through the math, but I'll stop and see what kind of questions you have.
I don't know if I'm
Okay.
reading it properly. So am I understanding that the intention was to raise our budget by over $1 million in 1 year?
Yes. You are reading that correctly. Again, just sort of normal pay and benefit adjustments are at 766,000. You can see on the next slide, our personnel is 73% of the general fund budget. That's typical from most cities. So 6.6 million. So any sort of adjustments to that naturally increase the budget.
So 6.6 million is our annual salary.
Yes. Salary and benefits.
Okay, so we're looking at over a 10% increase in salary and benefits for the next year.
What it factors in is potential merit increases, potential COLA. It factors in potential changes to KP&F and CAPERS. So, KP&F is about 25% for fire. It's about the same for police. CAPERS is 9%. So anytime, if Mark's making $100 and he goes to 110, that isn't just 100. That's not just an additional $10. It's $10 plus CAPERS, $10 plus unemployment insurance increase, plus FICA, plus Medicare, plus unemployment insurance. It factors in potential increases to health insurance, right? Those are a bit of a guess, to be totally honest with you, because they happen in the middle of the year. Our plan year goes from July to June. And so someone tell me what our plan's going to look like this time next year and how we should budget for it, right? And that's not a complaint, it's just the way it is. And so we do our best to make an educated guess of what that's going to look like.
Okay.
But fundamentally, yes, that's what happens when personnel drives your budget, which it does for any city, anywhere.
Right. Yeah, that's common. That's common. I just was surprised to see the million increase in 1 year.
And just pointing out that $766,000 between compensation projections and benefit costs. Those benefit costs, there's an increase to us no matter what. Not every year, but this particular year, there are some increases in those, such as your health insurance or whatever, based on the pool rate. Of course, sometimes in the pool that we're in, our usage can be a calculating factor. So if we use more, sometimes you got to pay more.
there are ways to mitigate this, obviously. I mean, there's ways to make these adjustments different. For example, we don't have to budget the interest expense. As we talked about, we can just say at the end of the year, if we all feel like we're healthy enough, then we bring that to the governing body and say, how would you like to invest this surplus? So that's a way to get that 1.049 down to, $1 million.
So that difference, that 374 difference would be 150,000 budgeted less.
Sure, but that's money that we never even had the year before, so it's still over $1 million increase from last year.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, I sometimes feel I have to deliver these unpopular messages, but it just kind of is the cost of doing business, right? That's when you have 73% of your budget driven by personnel.
Sure.
That's just what happens.
So, and I didn't mean to
No, not at all.
prolong
That's
it.
Not at all. And these are just a couple of the ways those calculations came. We all recall that a mill for 26 is 124,947 times 28 mills. That gets us 3.5 in property tax revenue. The FY25 expenditures are from the FY25 adopted budget. Again, as we've been talking about, personnel is 73% of the general fund budget. Change to a payroll number changes multiple budget items, capers, KPNF, FICA, unemployment, overtime. Again, the overtime is driven primarily in two departments, the police and fire. Both chiefs try to do a really good job keeping that. In fact, the fire department has reduced their overtime over the last year or so because chiefs really focused on that. But it just is what it is. Sometimes folks have to be called out.
Yep.
This is a sample of what happens when you adjust personnel numbers. And I'm not picking on the fire department. This is just representative of what happens when you go from an FY25 payroll of 1.3 million. You see that? It's about halfway down in that FY25 column. And then if that goes to 1.4 with, again, merit, COLA, and adjustments as a result of the salary survey. So that goes from 1.3 to 1 almost 5. But then you can see how it changes all of the other numbers. Because it's not just adjusting payroll, it's adjusting KPNF. It's adjusting what insurance looks like. It's adjusting FICA, Medicare, workers' comp, all those things. So the net result is you go from 2.2 to 2.5.
I see.
Yeah, the very bottom
I
there.
was still in the middle.
Sorry, yeah.
So essentially that payroll line runs in the middle. If you look above it and below it, those numbers change when you change that payroll number up or down.
Well, and that's why I felt like we were missing such a huge piece with that salary study of not including the benefits bit of it, because our benefits are already so much better than most other municipalities. When now if we do, it just seemed like it was, because it does all trickle down to the other numbers. We got one portion of the picture and not the whole thing, and that was a little bit frustrating.
So if I might just point out, I apologize, but if you look at the payroll line and then you look up to where it says KPNF, okay, above that, the vision, dental, medical, and the one's HSA medical plan, one we don't use them, some we do. In a sense, if they were to, and they did a little bit of this, that's what they would have been looking at in benefit-wise. The rest of this is essentially stuff that we have to pay.
And
that everybody pays. So there's really no comparison. We could compare KPNF compared to maybe Bonner, but their rates are based on who you have now, what you're paying them, and in addition to people who have retired. So there's a formula. So theirs may be 21% and our may be 22%. And that's the only comparison. So they would have compared the vision, dental, medical, those above there. And they did a little bit of that, but not very much. And you're absolutely right.
So just to point out, just as kind of an attaboy for Tim, if you look at the overtime in the 23 audit, for example, it was almost 170,000. In the 24 audit, it went down to 131. See that there in the middle, also, and so that's just an example of how our department heads really do try to maintain budget discipline and fiscal discipline. It's not just us saying it, actually. I mean, the proof is in the numbers right there. So, again, this was just meant to be an illustration of what happens as payroll changes, so does everything else. Okay, and so just as another example, I ran a revenue neutral scenario, and you can see, all the same assumptions apply. That if you compared 26 revenue to our 25 expenditures, we would have a surplus. But if you compared 26 revenue to 25 adopted expenditures plus adjustments, there's a significant deficit.
Will we have anywhere in here that shows things that we're not doing again in 2026? Like, for example, we spent about $40,000 on a mulcher that won't be in our budget for 2026, or we bought a couple F-250s and maybe an F-350 that won't be in our 2026 budget. Is there anywhere that we'll see where things are falling off that we won't have to keep doing year after year again, instead of just increasing everywhere?
Yeah, I mean, there are some line items from every department where expenditures are less, but that's like, that's like the water bill versus your mortgage in your home example, right? I mean, the mortgage is the driver of your expenses, and the water bill is just kind of a thing that, like an F-150 or an F-250.
Right,
Because
when those
payroll
are
is the big expense.
sure.
Yeah, the way it's designed, the way we account for it is there are just a few transfers to pay the payments we already have, and then any we might take on, okay, from the general fund. Only a couple of general fund accounts pay that. Special sales tax primarily pays Public Works and the fire department vehicle expense, and there's one in the sewer because we bought a sewer truck, okay? And then those, of course, are transfers to this municipal equipment fund that we have, that reserve fund that we have. We've heard it as 420 because that's how we were introduced to it. Has a different number now, but essentially, we have to make those transfers because there's no other source of revenue to make those payments. So we're centralizing accounting for, say, for example, these trucks or whatever. But mainly, if you recall, some of the trucks that we purchased, those are coming from not general fund. Okay? So, and anything to do with fire department, and you just saw that scenario in their budget, there's no vehicle transfers. They're all out of special sales tax because they are the ones that routinely have used that over the years, and that those are structured. Those are longer term because they're bigger trucks, cost a lot more. So those are 5 to 7 year terms. So we always have some payments. Though by the time you're into 7 year stint of a payment, there's a new truck to be paid for, a new ambulance to be paid for. So it really doesn't depreciate in that sort of way. So.
Okay. What is the difference in the library? What we've been paying, what we're not going to pay out, and this next year will be our short year,
Opt-out year?
kind of.
Yes. And you mind if I take that?
I'm sorry, it's just going
No,
to be
this is a great question
off
because if there's a fear, as you can see, we only put $37,000 for, if you think equivalent wise, the library is probably going to be what Public Works about that. If you just think of what their overall budget might be in that area. So back to the question, I think that's 4.88 mils at the county level that we're charged. It's down from the 5 I used to use as an example from a couple of years ago,
right.
because they went revenue neutral, and feel free to correct me, but about 4.88. What they're going to do this year, they haven't decided just absolutely yet. So that's next meeting, I believe. So in a sense, our folks are taxed to pay that in as part of their library county bill, right? And so if we zero that out, right, they're not going to be paying that.
Right.
But we'll either offer to have them do that because they may carry on this service. We propose that, or it may be zero to them, but we reduced one mill. We don't have the library mills if we're going to do that in any way. So say it's $400,000 in this scenario, if it's 2026, we had to pay 100%. We clearly cannot pay for that whole library. If 2026, the library's up and running, we have to have staff and just the operational expense, it would be 400,000 plus.
But we're budgeting for third or fourth quarter.
We're budgeting 37,000 for the salary of one individual for the third quarter. I kind of wanted it in the spring. That may be a too early budget wise too, but that will give us 3 months at the end of 2026 and about 3 months to spring opening. So about 6 months for that person to be at ground level making some of these decisions. Now, if you want to change that and tell me to, hire them earlier, we certainly can, but budget, just being conscious of this budget, that's why the decision was made to push them later in the
Push it
year.
back.
Yes, because again, you saw those change. They're going to want health insurance. They're going to be a KP&F, our capers, retirement. All of these things go into the cost of just, hiring somebody on a salary.
Right, the doors won't be open. It doesn't
No.
make sense to have somebody there in the
No,
spring of next
it's
year.
really some of the decisions of some of the complexities behind that we just need some expertise. And so maybe that 6 months run up is enough time. We're kind of guessing, but this is budget driven at this point. We'll do what we can till that person comes on board. So the last quarter is what we're doing there. Again, I think if I understood the question, we're about that 4.88. Those in Edwardsville, we're paying that to the library board. That's the county tax that you pay in. That's not necessarily our equivalent, right, of what our assessed value is. So, but we will have to make that up if it's 124 a mill, and we're about 3 short, right? That's kind of where we're at. I'm a little bit worried about how we're going to find this funding if we just stay the course.
Not
So
for next year, but the year after.
2027, absolute. I
Right.
can't really speak to what's happening,
Right.
in
Right.
2026. It could be, I don't know. The fallout could be, we need to pay for library services somehow, and there's other ways we can do it. But aside from the taxation, we could offer a payment, maybe say to Water Springs, but we're going to talk about that. But essentially, it's
Yeah, you heard my answer.
it is concerning. So
It is.
So
It is.
ultimately, we won't have a library open here to pay for until 2027, but we do want to have staffing on board before the doors open to start prepping, building our catalog, and getting our electronics and digital things and everything set up and running. But the cost to our tax base, to our residents, really won't be affected as much in the 2026 budget that we're deciding right now, as much as the 2027 budget that we'll vote on next year. And at that same time, their mills should fall off from the Wyandotte County Library Board, but then we'll have to absorb some of that to help pay for the Edwardsville
Yeah.
Library.
And I'm making it very, very clear, the math we cannot absorb. We have to somehow find a funding source, which our primary funding source are our mills. So just
I may have
FYI.
said that right. I don't mean absorb in our budget. I mean of the 4.8. Then yeah,
Make me sweat.
So it'll be a net benefit to our residents.
Yes, absolutely.
Where they won't be paying 4.8 mils for a library that's not in our community. Hopefully that will be a lesser mill, maybe a 3 mil or something like that they're paying for a library that's in our community.
Right.
But that won't be a 2026, that'll be a 2024.
So, yeah, you'll be entertaining that next summer.
Sitting here looking at it, crossed my mind. Like,
Yes, ma'am.
it's coming. Yep.
We can do good things. We can tighten, but we can't find $400,000. There's just no way.
No, I think the messaging is going to be very important to
Absolutely.
educate our community and how that shift will happen, so that it'll be a net benefit to them and a benefit to our community.
Right.
But messaging is going to be very important to make sure they understand where that shift is taking place.
Doug, can you speak to some of what you might have seen from the department proposals? Because I'm looking at the list of the adopted expenditures and those potential adjustment changes. We're talking an interest expense, pay and benefits. That's really the administration, doing the math. But literally, we have the library expense, and we have just a very low number in the PD vehicle and contracts and equipment adjustment, fire equipment adjustment. But overall, could you speak to the percent change of just simple proposals?
I mean, overall, building off the 25 budget, which we all agree was a pretty bare bones budget from a general fund perspective. The 26 budget does not add much to that. So it's very much status quo again.
Yep.
So departments are, again, trying to be very fiscally responsible, but they're at the point where it's just kind of keeping the lights on with a lot of stuff. These projects that we're doing are coming from other funding sources and not the general fund.
So we did account for just some math percentages and things of the proposed salary survey information, making adjustments. We have outliers, things are, that as you saw, there's certain positions that are just not well aligned. So you make that, and those are not great big adjustments. Then of course you talk about the merit increases. We have to budget if it's, if we have 50 employees and whether it's 1% or 6% or whatever those percentages they might be able to earn merit wise, we have to budget for potential, right? And not everybody's going to get 6 and not everybody's going to get a 1. So what do we calculate to be that average, right? And then we have to decide, well, okay, COLA. Again, just using just bare numbers, 50 employees, cost of living adjustments, and what should that be, right? And so we are looking at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, Midwest region, that's how we would do that. We need a basis for making some of these decisions. And as you saw, those adjustments, potential merits, and a little bit of a COLA, you take 50 employees plus, and that's the adjustment. That's the math.
But again, it's not just salary, it's salary
Yeah.
and benefits.
Right, exactly.
I don't want you to think 50 employees are splitting 766,000. That'd be nice.
Could we get in line
If you
with
like that, we can give you a budget that does that. That's not this one. So that's what I wanted to give you tonight, is just kind of a primer for discussion. Again, we can bring back more information next time.
Will you email that so we can just kind of look it over? Yeah.
Yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
that'd be wonderful. Any
I'll
other
let you know
questions?
that is. And Mayor, for next time, the format is going to be a little more in depth. Now we're going to build from what we've proposed here, and you'll have some of the detail for each department. You heard wasn't much adjustments, and that will go into the capital rotation specifically to each department, where their equipment, if you will. That when we talk about capital equipment, we're referring to vehicles and anything that has certain expenses associated, lifespan of 5 years or whatever. And it's this piece for public works. It could be a mower, it could be a tractor, it could be a truck, right? That sort of thing. So you'll see that in each one of these presentations. So we're starting with those to include that capital and equipment rotation, and we're going to talk about the other funds specifically, special sales tax, the special highway, those sorts of things. So it'll be a little more in depth in the next. Partly is we heard you first, we worked from that, hopefully got the message, and wanted to show you that picture and where we're building from. And so any feedback that you have, this is the time to give that, and then you'll have even more opportunity to provide us guidance from each department's presentation.
Do you have some feedback for this evening on? Will you pull it back to where it showed like the? No, the. Yeah. So I think it would be beneficial when we're coming back. We talked about also increased revenue possibilities that would help cover some of these expenses, and that would be particularly when. Councilman Mullen talked about working with the FBI, with the police canine and things like that, possibility of increased revenue through the police department, increased wildland fire revenue through our fire department to help cover some of these expenses. I'd like to hear that. And then when we're hearing about the capital vehicle or equipment, policies, procedures, if there's efficiencies we can find in there. I'd like to know how many vehicles each department has and how long we expect those to last in their lifespan. And then are we budgeting for those coming forward? If body cameras is one example. We probably knew beforehand that those were going to be failing soon, and so it would be a good opportunity to work those into a budget, a percentage, if those are going to last us 6 years, 5 years might be easier, then do 20%. Do we have that 20% built into their equipment, thinking down the road? But then also, are there efficiencies that we can find in those equipment policies that would make those last longer? So we might be able to whittle this a little bit so it's not quite such a jump, and that way we can focus on merit increases, longevity increases, and things like that that we want to make sure we're taking care of our people with. Does anyone else have?
Well, I will say on the revenue assumptions at 9.1, that does include increases to the major revenue drivers, which again are 80% of the budget, so that's going to really drive the general fund numbers. And it doesn't necessarily include new revenue sources, so there may be some of that,
Okay.
but it does include additional revenue assumptions. So it's a fairly well thought out number.
And the only thing I would say, if you start accounting for variable revenue, you're going to be disappointed. What I mean by variable revenue, you have to have wildfires so that we deploy people and equipment to go to them, and only if we're called upon and scheduled, that sort of thing. And then it's reimbursement through the federal government, so we're spending the money, that sort of thing, and we're getting the money back. And then that money is going to the capital equipment reserve fund. So it won't go into your general fund, so it has nothing to do with mills or these other revenue streams. The federal government partnership, that's a police law enforcement relationship. It's about seizures, right? Federal seizures, whether our activities qualify for that, and we're a partner agency by happenstance where there's a seizure that takes place. I mean, we're already participating in that kind of stuff, especially if we're called to participate. Like, we need your K-9 to come and do these things, X, and then you're declared a federal partner agency. And you may see that. That's drug seizure funds that goes specifically to a law enforcement trust fund, right? And it can't be used for any other of these operational expenses, for example. But it could come supplement equipment and things.
Right.
But over the years, there's not been $30,000 received by the city for that. So accounting for these few little things, that really isn't the source, right? It just that may supplement, and we may, hey, we finally got 10,000, that'll help buy X. Okay, but we didn't plan on it because we have no idea that opportunity really exists.
And
right?
I understand that we can't count on fires in western Kansas. We don't wish for that. However, I think it is beneficial to discuss these things during our budgeting season, because when body cameras come up, for instance, that takes from our special sales tax. We just heard that special sales tax can go towards streets. And so it all, while it's not necessarily in this one silo, it's all our budget, and it's all ways that we can offset different expenses. So I think that's appropriate to discuss those, and if there's ways to enhance those or increase those, and maybe not, but I'd like to hear about it to see if there's ways to move those forward, and just looking for those efficiencies. Again, if we can make our vehicles and equipment last longer. I know for, like, personally, I would rather have a car that's a little bit older and more take-home pay, and so that might be something we can look at as well to help those dollars go further and make sure we're able to do the longevity and different increases that we talked about. But does anyone else have questions, input, things you'd like to see or hear about?
I do.
Please.
I just wanted to mention a couple of things. This is the tough time of the year, I guess. I've sat up here for 12 years, and I'm proud that every employee here at Edwardsville has received a raise every year. It's been tough. 2020, everybody got raises. 2021, everybody got raises. I know a lot of people went without raises. I'm proud that myself has been a part of that. I like to think we take care of our employees that work very, very hard, from the policemen, admin, parks, public works. Everybody works hard. This is where you get to work hard, Doug. And I think you know what we want, but this is where it's good conversations are had. We can get creative, and we can get to where we need to be. But this is a very tough part, because we're elected officials up here to make sure we have a very good budget for this city. But at the same time, we know our departments need their equipment, they need their tools necessary. And we need to pay our employees as well, so. And I'm ready to get to work here, so bring us some paperwork back with no red numbers. That's my ask. No, just wanted to make that comment, so
Thank you.
thank you for your hard work.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Got a lot of numbers on our agenda today. We're on to item 12. Consider a motion to recess into executive session pursuant to KSA 754319B2 for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship regarding city provides sewer services to extraterritorial customers. This would include our city manager, city attorney. Do we need 15 minutes, 20, like how
It's really up
much?
to Josh. What do you think? 15 minutes? Yeah, 15.
So to return at,
So moved.
second. With a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call?
Yes.
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 Okay, we'll be back.
We're going to my meeting room. Yeah. The training room is closed for voting. Yep.
This conference will now be recorded.
Make a motion to return to regular session.
Second. With a motion from Councilman Shriver, second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll? Adcox. Yes. Bullock.
Yes.
Blunt.
Yes.
Shriver.
Yes.
No action.
Okay, so we just move on to the next.
Yep. Yes, ma'am.
Consider motion to recess into executive session pursuant to KSA 754319B2 for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship regarding interlocal library agreement. Do I need to add anything to that part of it?
And just
Continued generalized legal advice concerning legal duties to include our city manager and city attorney to return.
It's pretty convoluted. What? I don't understand what's happened.
Well, I was just going to, I mean, it's legal advice. It's the topic that we had planned on in the agenda, as well as just more generalized legal.
Under attorney-client privilege.
I mean, I think you can add another specificity, but it needs to be specified, right?
That's fine.
You have to declare why. So we're talking about the interlocal library agreement and what
So
specifically?
we'll say the interlocal library agreement and attorney-client relationship regarding city-provided sewer services to extraterritorial customers.
Oh,
To include the city manager and city attorney. How long do you
Instead
think?
of previous
oh, we are?
discussion,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
just
To button that up.
Oh.
How long do you figure? So to return at 8:30.
we're adding two topics that are under legal advice. So legal advice is the justification of privilege. Advice topics.
That I listed.
Library issue and agenda as well as meeting.
Can you have two subjects in an executive session?
Well, and that's why
I don't think you can do that.
the topic, you have one
Right.
litigation topic. I'm fine with just backing out.
I think it's cleaner, then we can come back if you want to go back into a different session, but you need to specify the reason. It can't be just legal advice. It has to be legal advice of this. I think that's pretty plain in what the law is.
I'm generally topics.
That's fine. And then we'll say from the 12, then we won't have any action or any staff.
I think we were
Action
gonna
either.
talk about the sewer one. We should have extended that particular one for another 10 minutes if we needed.
Well, let's see if we need it. We just do the library.
Yeah,
now.
let's do the library, and then if we come back, we'll extend the sewer. So we'll do that to 8:30. Well, let me see the real time.
Yeah.
It's 8:14, so 8:35 to return at 8:35.
So make a motion to recess into executive session. Return, item number 13, consider a motion pursuant to KSA 75-4319B2 for consultation with legal counsel, which would be deemed privileged in the attorney-client relationship regarding an interlocal library agreement returning at 8:30. 8:35. Not a minute too soon.
We have a second. We have a motion from Councilman Shriver, a second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll?
Yes.
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 You know the way.
This conference will now be recorded.
Make a motion to return to regular session?
Second. Motion from Councilman Shriver, second from Councilman Adcox. Will the clerk please call roll? Yes.
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 On to item number 14, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. The only thing I have is solid waste, I'm sorry, trash, for a better. I've worked with the UG. This is, once again, we've got the letter again, and, but met with the city administrator this time as well. I think that was beneficial. We're working towards an interlocal agreement. The terms are no different than I explained almost a year ago, which we would be charged for the number of users, and those users are very low. So the city would just pay as part of our solid waste expense, the bill that they would send us per user. And it's really sincerely minimal. And so we'll enter into that agreement. They have agreed to continue the yard waste and the hazmat waste until the agreement is in place. So that's positive. They're inviting us to dumpster days, and if you want to use the yard waste, you can. The yard recycling and the recycling on Park Street, I believe. In addition to that, we are adding, as part of our bulk item pickup on 23rd of August, yard waste pickup. And so you can put that curbside. We have a lot of trees down, limbs, this and stuff in your backyards. I think there's going to be a rule from them that they have to brown bag that or plastic bag it. And so, but this will be the time that you don't have to carry it out other than to your curbside, and they'll collect it up. We're negotiating that, but it shouldn't be terrible. They're already deploying on the bulk item, so this would be just an added truck that
Same
just
day?
Be the same day.
Gotcha.
So you can put your couch out and your broken limb. So I
Because
think
I know we did it once last year, a couple years, where we just let them all take everything down to the park, like
Yeah.
the branches or
and,
whatever.
and we tried.
That's cheaper for the city.
It,
is my
it
point.
was, but here's the problem: is we chip that up or have to take it, and then we have to pay for that as well.
Right.
So, but the citizen has to bring it down there first. Not everybody has a truck,
Right.
this and that. Carry it to the curb, and we'll add it to the pickup of the bulk item pickup. So that's the plan right
Same
now.
day.
The cost cannot be that drastic. It's only a couple thousand-ish to add an entire bulk another one.
Right.
I already researched that last year in case we needed a third one, curbside bulk item, but we just don't need it.
That's
So
nice to add another.
yeah, so, and they'll do it
Another
at the same time, the yard waste truck will just follow behind. So, and there's ways that the city could acquire bags that we could pass out, but people can buy those at Lowe's, or they even pick up the black bags that you stuff full of leaves. They'll do that, so.
It'll rain like heck that day.
Maybe. It's an event from the city, right?
Sorry, I
And
just had to throw that.
Yeah, you'll have a brown bag soaked.
Yes, that too. Sorry.
That's what I have, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Yep.
Legal update.
Sure.
A discussion earlier about whether you can discuss more than one subject in executive session. I looked that up. There's an Attorney General Opinion 2018-1 that says that you can only use one justification, like attorney privilege, but multiple subjects may be discussed if those subjects fall within the justification stated in the motion to recess and to close our executive meeting. So we can technically put two subjects as long as it's the same justification. Second is I have begun drafting a review of the standard traffic ordinance as well as the UPOC, Uniform Public Defense Code, for potential adoption of the 2025 version with any amendments that you'd like to do. Working on that. If you guys have anything like
Thank you. Councilman Rowley. Councilman Millette.
Well, everybody left that I wanted to address, but I'm going to do it anyway. If you could relay messages, I wanted to just really congratulate the police department and their cooperation with Bonner Springs on the activities that they're doing together. I think it's really great for the communities. I told Chieftain Bonner, I can't remember his name,
Billy Knapp.
but I told him the other day too at a ribbon cutting on the mental health place. It's just really cool that those guys are working together like that.
Sure.
And I just really appreciate that. I've never seen that cooperation before in Edwardsville. Waterfest, I was down there and that was pretty cool. I was trying to find out who was minding the store because everybody was at the park sitting around in that dunk tank, but all of the staff and employees, it was pretty phenomenal. And I heard a lot of pretty good things from residents about that. So thank you. I think you're probably one of the big ones in that.
She herded a lot of kids. Yeah, that's it. She did great.
I mean, it was really awesome.
It was good.
A hot day, and everybody that was down there was just really a good thing. I was going to ask you something. What's going down on Newton where they're burying?
Gas line.
Is that gas line?
Yeah, it's been in the works a few years now.
I thought that's what they wanted to welcome the new parks director. Is it Jackson?
Jackson.
What
Yep.
his name is. I wanted to welcome him to Edwardsville and wish him luck. I think working with Brian is going to work out really good because Brian is just really a super asset for the city.
He'll report directly to Brian.
Yeah, and the Paiser rating was excellent. I would certainly like to have a copy of that
Will.
with a little larger font so I can see it.
You might have to zoom
I
in.
think that's a lot of something that all of us really need to consider pretty highly. Consider that pretty seriously on the budget that we're going to be starting to adopt here before too long. I kind of watch out for all the cutting of the mills. We got a report there that we got to really watch this money's situation. I was going to mention that whoever does the videos for the meetings and puts them on the web, there was 4 of them that I was trying to find today that weren't there. And then I went in about 5 o'clock and they were there. So can we talk to whoever does that, the web, whoever builds that web or whatever, and see if we can't get the videos back up on time, like within 2 or 3 days after a meeting? That's where I get a lot of my research. Try and find out, remember things that we had done in the past.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I can just tell you, we review all the minutes before we upload them. Melissa does the minutes, WC does the minutes. And I noticed today they have not been uploaded. I have put it on my calendar.
I think they're on there now.
No, I did them all today.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I did them, I noticed today they weren't there.
Yeah.
So I
Wasn't
added that to
magic
my
here.
calendar. Because she does the minutes, but then I upload them. Because you have to have your own 2 accounts thing, but I've added it to my calendar to make sure that I get it done as soon as she finishes. So and they're not muted and I don't catch that, then we wanna, if anybody says anything, you know, somebody else other than the council, then we can fix that. So it'll be corrected.
Don't slap me, but you can't hear them anyway, so,
You guys
hopefully.
have gotten a lot better.
But you still, I mean, if you wanna hear the council meetings, you just don't, because you can't. Anyway, that's all I got, thanks.
Thank you. Yep.
Councilman Shriver.
I will piggyback off of that city council meeting, Garrett. You can be just like me and just call Chantal. Every time you see something, you have a question. We probably talk way more than we should, but the source of information right there, I do. She's just a quick, because I've come to too many meetings when I've like, oh wait, I'll ask that in our meeting, and then I forget, and then the next day I'll call Chantal. Anyway,
Well, that's what
wonderful source of information right there.
That's what I like to review, and
Right,
remember,
right.
can't remember what
Well,
I
if
had.
you don't see it, please don't hesitate to reach out and say, hey, why didn't you finish that?
Okay, well,
Normally it does take a couple days for her to finish the minutes.
okay, well, that would just, okay, thank you.
If I can add on to everything Garrett said, the Waterfest, a lot of people are involved. A lot of people prep and plan and organize, and a lot of people are there for that day and make those kids so happy. So I thank you all for. Can you express the thanks to everybody?
Yep, absolutely.
But
Will do.
I always look at Chantal because I know it takes the organization of many to make that come together. So thank everybody for that. Welcome Jackson Rupp. That is a warm welcome. I mentioned in our last meeting that I think a lot of people needed to be praised and thanked because they stepped up when there wasn't a
There was a transition.
there was a transition, and
Yes.
I will. There was some employees, their spouses, their family members had to step up and run concessions and really be quick on their feet and come together, and they made the kids happy. And I hands Chantal and Brian,
Right? Absolutely.
hats off to them because they dug in. They didn't have to do that. I mean, they kind of did, but they were happy to do it.
They
So
were. They were.
we have tremendous staff here. That's not inclusive either. Everybody. And the Pacer presentation was wonderful. I know in the past when we have had that, there's been feedback from the community sometimes. You'll know where I'm going with this, where we have our projects listed and they're working on this street, and then this community says our street is terrible. Well, if we can post that or post our plan, that way people realize, oh wait, that's in worse shape. They don't know what they don't know, but if they see a plan, at some point maybe we can get on the website, we can get something out for the public to kind of see our plan and see what's going on. It might lessen phone calls for the staff. So
that certainly comes in the future when we solidify the plan itself and we kind of attach, hey, these are our priorities from the council level.
right,
We'll get that out there as a PDF and they can read about it, and then we can brief that a little bit. Hey, these are the priority projects. These streets will be addressed in this way. Simple bullet things. We can do it. So that's our plan.
And even when and if it happens, and it's always, and I even thought about that's something kind of neat to kind of a little blurb to put in our little message we hand out to residents next year in May. I mean, just something. It's valuable information that. There we go. Oh, we got to get a whole list together of that. So, what else did I want to say? I wanted to say something else. Now it totally left my mind, so I'm not sure what it was. But that's it. That's it. Thank you.
Councilman Adcox. No comment. All right. So just to button up a little bit in our next coming weeks, we'll be going over the STO, which is our standard traffic ordinances. That'll be sent out probably pretty soon for us to review because it can be a little bit lengthy. And then we'll have the UPOC update. That's been a few years since we've updated it. But that will also include if you guys have ordinances. I know the ATV, UTV should be included in that, and some other things that have been brought to either my attention or attorney's attention. If you guys have ideas or things you want included, feel free to email Mark or Josh, and we'll have those conversations. I just wanted to make sure we get those out to council to review with plenty of time, because those can be lengthy documents, and a lot of us are busy working and have other things during the week.
On that note, Mayor, I've asked Josh, the city attorney, to make sure that there is some sort of cross-reference chart so you can say, hey, this is the change from previous adoptions, and this is the change from our actual ordinances we have, or a modification or something like that. And I think you're going to put that together. There is a in those standard traffic ordinance and the uniform public offense codes, there are cross references built in the back of that book. It shows you, so that's part of it. But some of the things that we're going to add to our own codes and things, there should be some sort of document that just kind of spells that out.
Well, I have the amendments drafted that would be different. You and I can visit as to whether it'd be helpful to have like for example, an ATV ordinance, if you're going to be more permissive with use of certain micro trucks or other vehicles on city streets. I mean, the ordinance that I've drafted would just replace whatever's in the SDO. But if you do want, I guess, take a look at the amendments. They're not many of them. And then if you want some things more in depth as far as being able to see side by side.
And certainly, there in the standard traffic ordinance, right? It's a book. Police officers look, okay? It's going to say speeding in a certain area. Ours amends that. I think you want to know the differences. If I heard this right from the past, so give me some guidance if that's not right to guide the attorney on. But you want to see that if this business zone is 20, but ours is 35, you want to know the difference. What's the change?
Oh, right. If it's new, then there won't be a change. So it'll just be, say, new. But if it's changing an old to something else, then we could have like a red line or something like that. Where it shows the like the old versus the new. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Let me send what I've got so far.
Yeah.
If it's confusing, then I'm happy to prepare a table. It's just that, like, you may not care what the STO says generally about this if you've got it perfectly. Like, for example, I took one ordinance that one council member asked me to look at from another jurisdiction, and we know where that came from, how they kind of approach it. But if the comparison of, well, these are generally prohibited, not it is, I'm happy to explain that in chart form if needed. It's just, I think that the actual amendments are pretty self-explanatory.
Okay.
Not that I'm trying to get out of work, I just want to make sure it's helpful before I do a.
Okay.
Well, let's at least send it so we have time to review as that comes.
Or if there's a previous example.
I do think when you see those, the uniform public offense codes, that's about theft and things like that. And then the standard traffic ordinance is about traffic, okay? In the back of those, even in the digital copy, in the very back, it shows you where those, what changes were made from their previous publication, not from ours. Ours has been 2 or 3 years or more.
Yeah.
So that, you may have questions about that. So that's where you find that reference. It's in the back. It says, hey, this statute changed 2 years ago, therefore we've updated it in this, or something to that effect.
Right.
So, digital, I haven't seen this digital. Is it just PDF? Yeah. So there's enough to wade through. I'm just giving you a heads up, and I thought there were some instructions that you wanted a chart of some sort that kind of shows that mapping of how ours is different than maybe this UPOC or what's changed over the years. But if you don't want him to put together other than the amendments that he's going to show you, you can look in the back of those books and you can see what is different that primarily aligns, because that's their foundation of state statutes.
Yeah, so since we hadn't updated it in the last 3 years, we'll just want to see what they've changed, which I think LKM puts out every year.
Every year.
A red line version.
That has to do with what the legislature has done with case.
Exactly, yeah.
And those are a different purpose than you saying through home rule. We would like to take a different direction.
Right.
And so I'll make sure you have all that information.
Okay.
And if we need to summarize it, we'll summarize it.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I think that works.
That's perfect.
I'm just making sure I follow through with the instructions I was told. It's like, okay, somebody produce something.
Yes. No, I think we're well aligned.
If it's going to be produced, it will be me.
Okay, thank you.
Perfect.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
was hoping he'd say that.
And I just wanted to make sure we had time to review for you. So
Yeah,
STO
it's a
will be
big document.
focused, first one in August. UPOC and any other ordinances will be the second in August.
My
Second
only other
meeting
caveat,
in
I just
August.
want to make sure we signed is it a confidentiality agreement with that? There's some digital production piece that we assigned some of agreement. Is that distribution or how does that work? We'll find this out. We have to look at it. We do sign agreement for the digital copy. Okay, so I think it can go to you, the city, for review, but I don't think it can go out farther than that. But we'll double check that, okay? And we'll give you some rules with it
Oh, yeah, let us know.
because
I know
it's a purchase document.
we do need to make it easier at some point for people to look up ordinances, because right now it's near impossible on our website to find. If you're trying to look up chickens or something like that, it's just not easy for the lay person to navigate. And so, and that might be part of the issue if it's locked up from LKM.
No. They're separate. So essentially, think of this book as something they produce, they own it, okay? And then you buy it from them. What we've done here is they're giving you a digital copy, but that's not for technical distribution, right? We bought so that you can review it, pass the laws, but then we'll have to order the books from them. So they're not a public entity in this sense, right? So they produce this, they want paid for it. So that's essentially what I'm saying is you will get a copy of it, but it's not for distribution beyond that. That's what I think the rule is.
Okay.
We can buy a copy to post on our website.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yes, but
Yes.
we have not purchased that yet.
Right.
Yes.
That's
tell
what
me
I was.
about it.
That was what I was talking
Okay.
about. Is some way for our residents to be
I
able to access the
Good.
laws.
Thank you for that clarification.
Yes. And then
Good.
And we have the 2022 already for,
Yes.
so they've had the website, and it's frankly a lot more useful than if that interface,
music
Yes.
codes or whatever.
Yep.
Um.
I agree.
Well, we will wrap this up. Last thing I just wanted to mention is just to remember Deputy Ming and that family in our prayers. And going forward, I know that the whole community is really.
Heartbroken.
I just can't even think of the words, but just heartbroken and wanting to support that family and the law enforcement community. I know our police department and our city are also reaching out to those the sheriff's department and other agencies to make sure that we're being supportive and a good partner with them to support them during this time. But just wanted to take a moment to honor his service to our community as a Wyandotte County sheriff, and that we will call it a night.